Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to the latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, it's Monday, and of course I have Edwin on the line. Hi Edwin, how are you going?
I'm a little bit stressed, Martin. I'm a little bit stressed.
Why are you stressed?
Oh, look, I forgot to put the alarm clock on for Saturday morning. I had an auction at 9 o'clock. The property was meant to go to auction at 9 o'clock, and I forgot to put the alarm clock on, and I'd missed the auction altogether. And I woke up at 9:30, and shit, I was in a lot of strife. And then I reminded myself, hold on a minute, I bought the property on Thursday.
You already bought it, so
I'm still stressed.
Oh dear. Well, let me try and reassure you. I'm going to call you Saint Edwin, right?
What? Well, look, just as long as you don't call me, anything else. As long as Saint's okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to get the Pope to ordain me or some shit like that?
Well, I think perhaps we should, knock on his door and see. But the reason is, it's really quite interesting. I've had more than a dozen emails over the last week, specifically referring to some of our conversations, and specifically those relating to the question of getting your own survey and not relying on what the vendor might be offering, and also making sure that you do your own research and things like flooding, things like developments, all those things, right? And in each case, they said we would not have thought about these things if you'd not made it a point to discuss them on the show. So many thanks. And I think for me, that's the biggest plaudits that we can get, that we've actually helped some people to not make bad decisions but make better decisions.
I'm pleased and I'm happy for them that they were able to follow our advice in that with regards to those matters. And how many more thousands are out there that don't do that, that jump in on a market where there's a lot of FOMO flying around, and with this fear of missing out, they'll sign anything that's put in front of them, and they'll pay any price that the agent tells them that the property is worth. And you know what? And also they follow the instructions that the agents give them without realizing that there are certain steps that you can take. In this case, we bought this property on Thursday, as I said earlier on, and it was totally against what the agent said 2 weeks prior or a week and a half prior, in telling us that the owners were not going to take offers before auction. And that they weren't interested in accepting offers before auction. But after having discussions with the agent, after following certain rules that I have put in place in order to assist our followers or the people that follow us and our clients, we came to a heads of agreement, and we were able to buy the property. And a lot of people say, well, you probably threw a lot of money at it. No, we didn't throw a lot of money at it. We actually, I believe, we got it $100,000 to $150,000 below what it would have sold at auction, when you take into account all that fear of missing out and all the emotion. We took it out in a very hot market, around Epping, and we took it out, and it was unprecedented. And the thing is that it's a matter of how you work, how you approach things, how you do your due diligence, that will determine whether you buy, whether you make offers beforehand, whether you go to auction, and all these things. So I'm really glad that they send you those emails. But my question, Martin, is, did they send a check with those emails?
No, a bit short on the old checks, I have to say, but you have their eternal thanks. And like I said, we'll have to call you Saint Edwin from now on.
Sometimes you can give the titles away, but show me the cash.
Okay, folks. Well, if anybody wants to send Edwin a donation, there is mechanisms as below. It's down in the comments below. So,
yes, and we will take crypto, Martin. Are you taking crypto?
I am. Yeah. It's funny. I've been taking cryptos for quite some time, but hardly anybody actually throws any at me. So I don't know what
Oh
I'm
man, I
doing
lost
wrong.
my password on my crypto account 3.5 years ago, and I can't. I think I bought XRP or something like that. I don't even follow it. Like, it was just one of those off the cuff things, and I think I bought 2,500. And at one stage, my understanding was that it was down to 900, and then I couldn't find my password and all this. Anyway, I don't know. Look, it's just one of those things. But we'll do take it. We'll accept crypto.
Well, I was talking to someone the other day who's got Doggy Coin, which of course has gone to the moon. So we'll see. Now let's just go back to the property market. And one of the things you've highlighted a couple of times is what's happening with people in the USA and looking at Australia, thinking, "Oh, we might want to come over there." Getting more information about that, aren't we?
Look, we are, and you only have to look at the madness that's going on in most of the overseas countries, particularly in the USA. As they say, the Yankees are coming. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Or, is that discrimination? Or I'll just say, the gringos are coming, Martin. The gringos are coming. But look, as we've said for many months now, and almost a year, that Australia is a very attractive nation to be looking at, and the WeChat chatterers are hot on the chatty, on the chatter groups, and they are really speaking about the possible means and ways to come to Australia, because they see us as a real safe country, and look, I dare say they will be coming, and I don't think we spoke a few weeks back with regards to the universities looking at South America and at South African nations, or India for that matter, to fill in the vacancies there in the universities. I think it's going to be more from Canada and from the States, quite frankly.
Yes, and of course they'll quite often come with a reasonable amount of cash and perchance perhaps to buy larger properties. So that could put a bit more heat at the top end of the market in some areas. Be interesting to see how that plays out. And you have to say, if you look at it objectively, Australia is certainly a very attractive place to come to relative to pretty much everywhere around the world, even if we haven't got the vaccine rollout sorted out yet. We've got our first travel bubble now to New Zealand. Whoopee.
Well, look, but the thing, don't forget, we also spoke about the New Zealand a couple of months ago with regards to what the WeChat chatters were talking about on the chat groups there from New Zealand, and how they're selling in order to come over and buy here. Why? Because the economy, they believe, is going to do a lot better in Australia than it is in New Zealand. I mean, there's a lot to play out. There's a lot of there are a lot of things happening. There's a lot of dust that hasn't settled yet. But one of the things is that the appetite is for freestanding homes. The appetite is for something that's got a parcel of land, as opposed to apartments. Apartments are a different kettle of fish. They're just sinking further and further each week as it goes along. And the narrative of there being a shortage in the next 2 to 3 years, I think that's a lot of bullshit. And because we know, and Catherine Cashmore and her team have bought out for a number of years the amount of vacancies, and predominantly apartments owned by overseas investors around Australia was something like 1.2 million vacant properties. I wonder how many more are vacant, and how many how many more have been vacant because of the not being able to be leased out, and people doing a runner on the rent. So that's gonna be it is going to be epic. As epic as Mad Max, Martin. As epic as Mad Max.
Great segue. I love it. Yeah. They're going to film the next, a prequel to Mad Max in Australia, right?
A prequel. I do have a story to share with our followers, Martin. I actually, at the time, I was at college, and when they were shooting Beyond Thunderdome, and I was driving a cab at night to get myself through college, and I actually picked up Mel Gibson at the domestic terminal, and I took him to what was at the time his parents' house over in Coogee, and we had a good old chat. I didn't recognise him at first, and I deflated his ego for a bit because I didn't recognise him and I couldn't remember his name. So we had a good chat, and we talked about the Mad Max trilogy at the time and what was happening, and now we're back. And in the fact that they're going to shoot it again in New South Wales, I think Mad Max is a prophet or a time traveler, because it's timely. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was shot in Homebush Bay, and I think it was right next door to Opal Tower at the time. So maybe in the shooting of this prequel, the Opal Tower may come down. We know for sure that Mascot Tower is coming down, and maybe they'll do a bit of shooting around Mascot as well, Pat.
Well, I was going to say, if they want some dystopian future shots, then the area around Mascot Tower, as they demolish it, would be perfect, wouldn't it?
Look, it will, and that could also go to some basements of the high-rise developments around Liverpool, and I could take them to Burwood, and Parramatta. Look, Parramatta, I'm sure some of those basements there are still underwater. So I'm telling you, Martin, Mad Max, I think is a time traveler, or a prophet. I mean, it's all about sainthoods, prophets, prophecies. We're getting very religious, Martin. What's going on?
I don't know. Well, let's see whether we can, keep that ball in the air as we look. Just on Mascot Tower, right? We said some time back, right, when this thing started to blow up, that it was unlikely that they would be able to make the repairs that were required, because it's just way too structural, and it's pretty much where it is. So people are now looking at an 80% hit on what they paid, right? It's a huge issue.
Well, it is. You've got to take into consideration the demolition costs and the value. At the end of the day, the developers are trying to offer them just what they believe is the value of the land. I don't think they're going to be the local council. Let's say they all sold them. Let's say they sold at a loss because they were able to sue the original strata company that managed that. Hey, there's a hint. Once again, for anybody that's within eavesdrop away from and listening to this podcast, because that's where that's who they should be chasing. But anyway, that's another story for another video. And I don't think the local council is going to allow them to build as high, and they're not going to be able to obviously dig the basements that they would have that they've got at the moment. So in order to keep to keep the structural integrity in future. Don't forget, there's a rail network right next to it or underneath it, or very close by. So that's going to obviously affect what they put in there. Quite frankly, I think the government should be buying that and turn it into the local government should be buying that and turn it into parkland. Yeah,
no, that's a good point. And I guess the other point to make, Edwin, is that, as you and I have said previously, Mascot Tower and I guess Opal Tower are two iconic examples of poor quality construction, bad processes right through from architecture right the way through. But they're not by no means the only examples, right? Wherever you look, you see similar problems, and it just begs the question. I wonder how many others around the state will ultimately end up being demolished because the remediation costs are way too high. It's a big question.
Look, it is, and unfortunately, again, we the powers to be, the controlling, the governing bodies just failed us, just failed the general public dismally, as it continues to fail the general public with making it not so much easier, but make it more affordable for first-time buyers to buy into this crazy market. They're failing us because they like to look after their the political donors and the vested interest that they have with all these political parties. And I'm talking about political parties of all persuasions, not just necessarily the one that's in power or the one that was in power at the time. But when they diluted the strata regulations, or the regulations around strata and ongoing maintenance, and when they diluted the onus that the builders had on high-rise development or anything above 3 levels, anything that had a lift, when they diluted those regulations, it made it virtually impossible to put a claim against the developer unless the strata company at the time was able to and provided the proper documentation and the proper inspections and engineering reports that were due 6 months. They're due 6 months before the 2-year tenure. Otherwise, the developer walks free and the builder walks free. And when they did that, they also put in place this bloody 2% retention on cost. And then at that time, when they were doing this, I spoke to, I can't remember who the gentleman was from Fair Trading. I spoke to him on 2GB and on a Saturday, and I had a lengthy discussion with him on 2GB with regards to the issues around it, and because they were so adamant that the 2% was going to cover the any ongoing faults or issues that would be able to be rectified, because it was 2% that the developer of the overall sales was held in trust. But I said that's not enough, given the fact that at the time I also disclosed that real estate agents were getting anywhere at that time, we're getting between 5 and 8%. And in some cases 10% in commissions, and these were dog boxes. These were badly built, and they basically were built so badly built. And here we are. We are where we are, and let's see if that 2% levy that was charged by developers is going to make any impact on the Mascot Towers, the Apple Towers, and any other tower that's about to drop. But then again, our viewers should also be aware that this whole thing is also related to any property that's above 3 levels, where the insurances don't kick in, where the strata companies have to be on the ball in order to look after the owner's corporation. Otherwise, they'll be in a lot of strife with any rectification work in the future.
Yeah, that's very important, Edwin. And I guess the other point, well, I've got 2 questions for you. If you are actually in one of these high rises where you've got structural issues, and you have, right? What should you do? And then secondly, if you were thinking of buying a new high rise, what are the questions that you should be asking before you actually start progressing any sort of purchase?
Well, one of the things that our followers should be doing for either one of those questions is start putting together all the documentation and the material that the selling agents have shared with, let's say, with me if I bought one, and collate all the information and look at the warranties, look at the assertions, look at what the promises that the selling agents make, because you've got a good chance of chasing the agent for making for basically acting outside of their license. And because they've got a license, first and foremost, to sell these, then you can always come back to the PI insurance under their license. So they are accountable. So you can hold them to account if you bought, and you can hold them to account if you're going to buy. Put all this documentation in anything that they say by spoken, by text, email, or in the marketing material, and it's not hard to put it all together. And the silly stuff that a lot of agents make when they're selling these developments would absolutely mind-boggling. I've stood next to real estate agents of certain demographics. I've stood next to them as they're telling their clients that there's a 7-year warranty on the structural, on any structural issues of an apartment that I was standing next to. It was about 21 or 22 levels high, and I just shook my head. But these people didn't know any better, and they followed the agent's advice. The other thing is a lot of the cases with local investors, a lot of these properties were sold by marketing companies. That unfortunately, a lot of these marketing companies don't have real estate licenses, but they do have. They are connected with financial planners and accountants and mortgage brokers that become real estate agents by stealth or moonlight as real estate agents, and they got they in most cases they earned 3 times as much as your local real estate agent would earn on the sale of any one of these apartments. So they're the things that you could prepare yourself with if you're stuck in any one of these purchase. Well, you've just got to be the first to jump, be the first to get out if you can get out, and just, I'd say, cut your losses, because the things are only going to get worse, particularly the fact that a lot of the owners' corporations are going to be trading insolvent or going broke. if they aren't already broke or already trading insolvent. Because a lot of what I'm hearing on the ground is that a lot of the overseas investors for these apartments are not paying the stride of lease because they haven't had tenants, Martin. So now that the insolvency moratorium has been lifted, it's a watch and see what happens with a lot of these developments.
I think the point there about plotting an early exit is absolutely spot on. And the more you look at it, the more you realise that we haven't seen the worst of this yet. So I think that's right. Now, the other interesting question, and it's one you've touched on a couple of times, but let's just touch on it again. The infrastructure is not keeping up with all the development. If you go out west, there's an article on ABC. If you go out west, there's loads and loads of stuff being built, but that stuff is all sort of places to live. There's nothing else there. Pretty nuts.
And there isn't, and we had this conversation almost 2 years ago, Martin, when we put out a video or a podcast. I think it was a title along the lines, "All Roads Lead to Sydney." So the governments weren't really interested in putting up any infrastructure out west, whether they were privy to a pandemic or any economic catastrophe or any catastrophe related to any type of pandemic, any economic grenade going off. We could tell. You and I spoke about this, and you were so clear that all the infrastructure points basically to the city. When I say the city, not necessarily the CBD, but the North Shore, the eastern suburbs, the eastern part of what we know as Sydney. That's where all the infrastructure points to, and for people to all of a sudden be amazed now that there's no infrastructure out west, well, it hasn't just happened just recently. It's been like that for 8-10 years, where groups have been speaking about, trying to lobby the government to do things out west. And it's not only just in Austral, where this article talks about. You've also got areas such as Schofields, the Ponds, in those areas in the northwest. So it's really, we haven't, the governments, the powers to be, been spending money on football stadiums and have forgotten about the real infrastructure that will create jobs, that would have created jobs, and people would have been gainfully employed, in building, and they would have been working through, and a lot of the things would have been a lot different had they listened to our podcast like a few years back, Martin.
Yeah, I agree. We did call it out, and of course it all goes back to the planning processes, the myopic view of just looking at local developments without thinking about the infrastructure that's required. And of course it's also the quick profit motive, isn't it? You get money flowing to the local authorities because of the building and development permits and those sorts of things. And of course, the stamp duty, but there's not enough logical thought around the context for the developments. And I see it again and again, all of these high growth areas with almost nothing there other than more and more houses or apartments, and that's it. And it's really, quality of life goes through the floor. The value that could be created isn't being created, and generally what you're doing is you're creating ghettos, aren't you?
Yeah, you are, and that's again another video that I put out something like 8-10 years ago. Where I was talking about this high rise and all this development that was going on, and it was really to cater for the overseas investors and for the state governments to fatten up their coffers with the stamp duty, that was being brought in or paid by all these investors that were buying into this BS and into this states or badly planned estates, whether it be high rise or whether it be subdivisions out west, where they just basically just corralled thousands of families with very little infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, something else we should really talk about. We got a question the other day saying, what about selling a property myself rather than going through an agent? Does it make sense? How did you go about it? And it's a very interesting question, and I think very apposite at the moment.
Yeah, look, that's something that it's been around for a while. Like, I mean, people can sell their own. You can sell your own house, obviously, and it's times like this. Channel 7 picked it up, and they basically, saying that, it's. Why do you? Well, they asked the question. Why do you even need a real estate agent when things are so hot? I remember, Mr. Property John McGrath said a few years back when, you could put your phone number on a piece of cardboard in front of your fence, and you get people knocking at your door, and we're back there again, with regards to, but this is with regards to freestanding homes, right? So you can, one of the main property portals allows you to even sell property as an individual, as a citizen, as opposed to being a real estate agent. So you could buy space on and list your property as a person selling your own property. It's quite possible. But then again, when you look at the thought around selling your own property, and the number of websites that are assisting people to sell their own property, it makes me think that we're moving closer and closer to the actual portals. Again, releasing the product, as I said, and going at it themselves, and being in direct competition with the real estate industry. But then, Martin, with all the shenanigans that goes on in my industry from the point of view of selling property, I mean, is it any wonder that people are making these choices, and people are now starting to seriously look at these choices, and technology has got us one step closer to be able to sell your own property without the need of a selling agent.
Well, you certainly can save some dollars, and if you are careful about it, and as you say, there are mechanisms that you can use, and you get a good sense of what true value is, so you don't undersell your place. It can make sense. Not maybe for all types of property, but the processes and procedures are not that complicated, really, but you have to be a little bit careful, of course, as well. But certainly worth considering, I think, particularly now when the market's relatively hot. Now, the other interesting thing, you told me a story which we're going to talk about now on the ground with regard to you helping somebody get their deposit back, so it can be done.
Well, that's right. So look, it's I sent you a screenshot of the conversation with one of our followers. She's actually one of your started following you, Martin, and then reached out to me through the podcast that we do, and the videos that we do, and they had exchanged contracts on a property, and in doing her due diligence, she found out that there were termites. These little bastards, they were there. But the agent was adamant that everything was fine, that there was no termites and everything. She continued to do her due diligence, and then she was a little bit concerned, and obviously didn't want to proceed with a contract of sale. And she reached out to myself, and I was able to walk her through. Again, find out what the agency said, what the agent said to her personally, get her to write it all down, put it all in, he said, she said, and put it all together, and then helped her to put together a letter. Then she sent to the principal of the agency, basically, refund me my deposit, and or we'll take it further. So, and as I said to her, look, it's something that real estate agents don't want to go down the path, whether it be just a 0.25% deposit, or whether it be a 5% deposit of a $500,000 purchase or $600,000 purchase. The point is that the agencies would weigh it up, and I'll get to the bottom of it. And if those comments were made, false and misleading information was given out to prospective buyers, and they can determine that in-house or by their lawyer, or the legal representative, asking them the same questions. It's something that you want to avoid. You don't want to have fair trading on your case over a 0.25%, whether it be $1,500, $1,700, or whether it be a $5,000 deposit or $6,000 deposit. You just don't want to have fair trading on your case to to deal with, because they're obviously going to look at other things, and it's just too painful. But we're able to help her, Martin, and she got her money back, and she just sent me through a text message saying, thank you very much for your help and support, and I got my money back.
Yay. Saint Edwin strikes again.
But rather than replying cool, I should have just said, I should have sent my bank account details. What do you reckon?
but it does go back to keep a record of everything, put it in writing, keep all the stuff there, because you do then have ammunition that you can throw if you need to throw it. If things go pear-shaped, and so often things are done on the phone or half whispers rather than actually structured. And I think it's really important to remember that it's keep those records.
Look, it's a must in this day and age. With everything that you do, anything you try and transact, and especially when it comes to property, and I think the simple fact that you're going to be making notes as you go along, and as you go to the opens, and as you listen to what the agents say, what they say, and collate all the information that they give you. I think you're also doing something constructive in your own mind and for yourself in gathering all this information and making a more informed decision rather than just letting it all loose on the day of the auction. And emotions just running hot and running crazy.
Yeah, and I always say take a camera, take a few shots as well, because often you forget things, and it's good to have the physical record. You may have to seek permission to take photographs in some cases, but generally agents will be quite accommodating if they think they're going to buy the place, right? But I certainly, every time I've bought, I've always taken photographs, so I know precisely how things were, where they are, and all those sorts. And also, if there are defects, you can actually take photographs and then look in more detail later, which is quite useful as well. Now, I've got one other question for you. How much is an orange?
Look, it's getting ridiculous, Martin. I know I've been criticised, with my $4.99 kilo of carrots, but look, I decided to go and take some photos, and there's a kilo of what they call missile apples. My God, Martin, that were the size of the marbles I used to play with when I was in primary school. These so-called missile apples, $10.99 a kilo. I think there were 6 apples in a kilo, and then there was the other photo that I sent you there, mandarins, $5.99 a kilo. Those bloody things, weigh 250 grams each. So you only get four mandarins, Martin. Do the math. Things are getting very, very expensive. It's not a conspiracy, guys. Inflation's going through the roof, and I didn't. Carrots were a little bit low this week, so I didn't photograph the price of carrots. Had gone down to $2.50 a kilo, so I was ashamed. I should have taken the photo when they were $4.99.
Yes, and it's interesting. Have you noticed the other little phenomenon, and that is that the size of packets of things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the contents within the packets are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the amount of air in a packet is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you're actually ending up with less stuff for more money.
I know. Look. Two things. I remember. Look, it's. I know I've gotten taller since I was a teenager, but a little bit taller, but I would struggle to eat a Big Mac. Now I reckon I could eat 4. Not that I eat Big Macs, but just the size of those bloody things. They're just like the size of sliders. They're no longer what they used to be. And the other thing is I'm a stickler. I'm a fan of the French fries, the French fries, the salt and vinegar fries. And I tell you what, Martin, you're not wrong there. I'm getting less French fries in those packets and a lot more air. But that air weighs a lot more than the chips.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. There was a product called a wagon wheel, right? Which is a large, round, sort of biscuity thing covered in chocolate with marshmallow in the middle, right?
You could use it as a spare wheel for your Mini if you break down.
Well, it's sort of a frisbee size, right? Yeah, well, at least, yeah. And I saw one the other week, right? And I thought I need a magnifying glass, right? It was sort of, it had shrunk. So as well as the direct inflation, right, that we've also got the deflation of stuff. So the miniaturization of products and, as you say, more air. It's fascinating. And I'll tell you something else. Have you noticed how many cereal packets that used to be a kilogram are now 750 grams or 550 grams, right? Still the same price.
Yeah, that's right. Going back to your wagon wheel, I thought you were going to say, and keeping it all religious, I thought you were going to say it was the size of those wafer biscuits they give you when you go to communion or that thing with the Catholic tradition.
Well, they're certainly a lot smaller than they used to be. So it's just another sign, I think. Wherever you look, there's a lot of discussion about, is it real inflation or is it not real inflation? Are we measuring it right, et cetera, et cetera? But if you look at some of the, the prices of things, and actually fruit and vegetables particularly have gone up quite recently, and that's partly because of picking issues and partly to do with the climate issues.
Well, look, the thing is, look, in all seriousness, because we eat out a lot with with clients, when we meet clients, when we're out with clients, and we're on the road a lot, and so you get to if you want to eat something decent, I'm not just talking about some takeaway, or sometimes we could be myself, I could be out there from 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and and not get back home till about 6, 7 o'clock at night. Particular days where a lot of the open homes are, and when you're out there and you want to have something decent, but the price of food in the small restaurant, cafe restaurants has gone skyrocketing. The portions are a lot smaller, and the other sad thing is that the two things. One is you can almost taste how old the food is. It doesn't taste like it's fresh in a lot of the cases, not all the time, but in a lot of the cases it doesn't taste that it's fresh. And secondly, the people that are waiting tables and that, they look so grumpy. What's wrong with people? But I don't blame them also, because I'm sure they're not getting paid anymore, and they're under a lot of pressure in terms of, if they're the owners of the business or related or employees, they'll be under a lot of pressure, which leads me to a question to ask our viewers is those that are employed, when was the last time they got a wage rise? And in comparison, when you start comparing it to the property values, that are going upwards, and yet our wages haven't been going up at all. I think the median is about 61,000, or thereabouts. So these things are gonna hit, and they're gonna bite hard. As we said, now that all these moratoriums have been lifted, now that we're starting to get back to some sort of normality, now that the government's, whether they're running out of money to throw at it, or whether we're going to see more money being thrown at it, and with the issues with international travel and the vaccines and everything else, I think we're going to start to really see and feel a lot of pain, Martin, which is sad.
Well, I agree. And of course, real wages haven't really grown for most people since 2012. So in real terms, there's been no growth, whereas prices of houses have gone absolutely, way up, which is why, of course, people have bigger mortgages these days than previously. And I think we're going to see some interesting stuff in the budget in May. I suspect we will see more money being thrown at certain areas. But of course, Home Builder, they've already extended the period to allow people to basically find a builder and find the materials to build whatever they've committed to.
Good luck.
Good luck with that. You're exactly right. Yeah. But of course, it was all dressed up as, just because the program had been so successful, et cetera, that really isn't the real reason why it's being extended. Basically, there's a need to extend it because you can't find a builder and you can't get the materials. And as we reported a few weeks ago, Edwin, it's likely that those scenarios will stay with us for quite some time.
Look, they will, and look, we just keep on telling it the way it is, Martin. And it's we have a bit of fun, but it's not making fun of our followers or our viewers or the people that watch these programs, but it's really taking the mickey out of the government and their policies and what they put out and their short-sightedness, and trying to call them out and make people think about the way they approach purchasing or even renting property. But I guess in the next few podcasts that we do, Martin, I think we'll concentrate a lot more on apartments, because there's a lot happening there at the moment. There's a lot of rumors going on, and we'll certainly talk a little bit more about it next week.
Yeah, and just to say, of course, I've got Senator Gerard Rennick on tomorrow for our live stream, and we're going to be discussing the whole question of Reserve Bank policy and all of those things. He actually asked some very probing questions recently in a Senate inquiry, and we're going to take that conversation a bit further. I'll put the links below. It'll be a really interesting conversation. So come and join us for tomorrow evening and ask him a question. And I'll look forward to catching up with you again next week, when we're going to perhaps do a slightly deeper dive into the whole question of the apartment sector, because I agree with you, that is now the sector to watch.
Most definitely, Martin. Always a pleasure, and looking forward to it.
See you later. Thanks.